The church in the Philippines dates back to 1521, and we received the gospel from the Spanish missionaries, the Augustinian missionaries to be particular. And for the past 400 years, the Catholic faith has grown as part of the Filipino culture. In other words, the Catholic faith is not just an expression in the church. The Catholic faith has permeated every aspect of Filipino life, Filipino culture. Right now, we are 87% Catholic, and there are around 5,000 priests working all over the Philippines, and we are certainly underpopulated considering the population of the Philippines. We should have more priests, we should have more religious, catering to the spiritual needs of our people. Right now in the Philippines, we have become a missionary country. Not in the sense of receiving missionaries from Europe, but right now we have become a missionary sending country because we send missionaries to Africa, to the rest of Asia, to Oceania, and even Europe. Europe, who used to send missionaries to the Philippines, is in need now of missionaries coming from the Philippines. And it is our way of saying thank you to Europe for what they have done to us in the Philippines for the past years, for the past centuries. We look at the relationship between the Catholic Church and the government in two words: critical collaboration. We collaborate for the good of the people because we serve the common good. We serve the same people. We can look at the church and the government as railroad tracks. There are two tracks. They cannot be too far from each other. They cannot be too near to each other because there would be a derailment and the victim would be the train. So there should be a safe distance between the government, the state, and then the church so that they can serve the train, which is God's people, which is the Filipino people. Critical, meaning to say, we do not just collaborate. We maintain our prophetic position that if there is something wrong, we are not going to keep quiet. But at the same time, if there is something good that the government is doing, we are ready to cooperate for the good of the people. The church looks at itself as a prophet of denunciation, but also a minister of reconciliation. You cannot separate these two. The Catholic Church in the Philippines is relatively young compared to the 2,000 years old churches, for example, in Malta, founded by, and 2,000 years old churches founded by Peter or the apostles. We are relatively young because we are only around 400 years old. But the church in the Philippines is not only young in terms of age. The church in the Philippines is young because majority of our population are young people. And it is our pride in the Philippines to see our churches being filled by our young people. And our young people do not just sing songs, do not just worship. Our young people are engaged in evangelization, youth, evangelizing youth, youth teaching youth, youth serving youth. The Philippines is around 7,000 islands. We are divided into 3 major islands, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And because of this reality of 7,000 islands, we are divided by dialects. Although English is spoken everywhere and Filipino is spoken everywhere, there are dialects in the various islands. But in spite of our differences in the Philippines, the differences in dialects, the differences in culture and ethnic upbringing, what unites us is really the Christian faith. You can go anywhere in the Philippines and you will be sure that you will encounter a Catholic community and there will be a Catholic church close by. There is no place in the Philippines where the church is far. Anywhere you go in the Philippines, it is very likely that you'll be able to attend the Eucharist, you'll be able to visit the Blessed Sacrament, and attend Mass. Pope John Paul II said the millennium, the third millennium, the new millennium that we are in, would be the Asian millennium. Asia is the continent of the third millennium. And my hope for the Philippines is that Asia would receive the gospel of Christ because of the light that comes from the Philippines. You know, there are around 6 billion people in the world now, roughly. And more than half of those people are living in Asia. And of the almost 4 billion people living in Asia, 87 million are living in the Philippines. And the Philippines has a very strong missionary challenge, missionary responsibility to share the gospel, the light of Jesus Christ, the rest of Asia. My hope for the Philippines is that the Philippines will truly be the light of the gospel for the Asian continent and for the rest of the world.